Morning all. Alright, so we're going to do a news of the day video to start things off today, at least for me to start things off. I know the preview video's already up. So Wyatt Johnston last night reached the 20 goal mark. He now leads all rookies in that category. He's one ahead of Matty Beniers, who had a 20th goal in a game last week and then it got changed to somebody else's goal. Now that's not going to decide Calder. The Dallas Stars account is pushing for, Calder. And you know what? He's going to get some consideration. I don't know if he necessarily wins it, but it really is a testament to the scouting job done by the Dallas Stars, the job done by Jim Nill in drafting him. And really, a few years ago when the world was dealing with, this everything, what's shut down, what's not shut down, who's playing hockey, who's not, Johnston ends up being a real find for Dallas at a time where he wasn't rated as highly as Dallas took him, and yet if we did the redraft now, he'd end up going higher. And I'm not doing that redraft today because it's too early to do that redraft at this point. But at any rate, I'm not concerned about whether or not Johnston wins the trophy because Johnston is just an excellent player overall. Really, really solid. So, all the best to him and Dallas from here. I still have concerns with Dallas, of course I do, but they're they got the win last night. Wasn't necessarily the prettiest, but they got the win. Jonathan Drouin, after being late for the meeting, he did suit up last night. He did sit on the bench, and he played 0 minutes. He played nothing. Now, this is right away, the questions being asked of whether or not Drouin has a good relationship with Marty St. Louis. St. Louis saying they do have a good relationship with one another. And this is the first time that a player has sat for disciplinary reasons since the Buffalo Sabres did the same with Sam Reinhart on March 28th of 2017 against Columbus. So that's almost 6 years ago, the last time that happened. Drouin, of course, may very well be in the midst of his final season with the Montreal Canadiens, and then it's a matter of where he goes from here. That trade where they acquired Drouin does not age well. And I remember at the time that trade was made, scratching my head and people saying, nope, makes sense. Tampa Bay wanted a defenseman, Montreal wanted a forward. And I think if there was a chance to reverse that trade, I think the Habs and their fans would agree that'd be a great idea. But at any rate, for Drouin, he said all the right things, and we'll see how he plays when he returns to the lineup and actually, gets on the ice. Last night, the Portland Winterhawks retired Cam Neely's number 21. He played a couple years for the Portland Winterhawks, so that's nice to see. And I remember Neely wearing the number 21 before he wore the number 8 when he was with Boston. And for Cam Neely, one of my all-time favorite hockey players, he's made some decisions running the Boston Bruins that have left me scratching my head here and there, but in general, nothing bad to say about Cam Neely, and nice to see the Winterhawks retiring his number. So, one of the takeaways from last night's power rankings, and the funny thing is, looking over things and waking up this morning and just, having a more fresh view on everything. Yeah, I know Colorado won their games this week, but how did they win their games? First, they won 8-4 against Montreal, sloppy game. They won in a shootout in Toronto. Now, I treat those as ties. Then they won a game in Ottawa 5-4. There was that weird goal that Eller got that, I still think they should have blown the whistle there. Or at least Sogard should have kept his glove on the puck. Something should have happened. So it's weird. And there were a lot of controversies in that game, and I didn't think Colorado played particularly well. And then yesterday they beat Detroit 5-1 against a Wings team that looks like they're just done. They're done. So I felt like the Rangers had the better week of the two. I felt like the Rangers were playing playoff hockey, especially that takedown of Pittsburgh last night. That was impressive. So that's why Colorado dropped a spot. So this is that time of year where there will be teams that are at the top that aren't necessarily playing well. But the funny thing is, too, I've noticed a lot of people don't like Minnesota. I'm not sure that I understand why. So Minnesota, a 14-game point streak gets ended yesterday. It's 14 games in a row with at least a point. It's pulled them to really close to the division lead. This is a team that their playoff lives looked like they were done a little over a month ago, and now they could end up finishing first. And that point streak was ended by a Boston team that has a record of 52-11-5. So it's not like they lost against Arizona. And Arizona's been playing better too. It's not like they lost against San Jose or something like that. So yeah, I find that weird that whenever Minnesota hits the top 10, I will immediately see the comments of, well, Minnesota's too high. Minnesota needs to be about 15th. I don't see how Minnesota should be in the top 10. You know, Minnesota could be 50-0. They could win 50 games in a row and people still be like, I don't think they should be in the top 5, actually. I don't think they belong there. It's just odd. It's something that I've noticed. So, yeah, I will go through this week and look at some things, and odds are the power rankings will probably end up staying roughly the same. I've done the power rankings the same for the last 5 years, and if I start making second guesses of myself, I would just drop the power rankings and do something else instead. And that's something I've always said, that if that system, I just do something else instead. Now, playoff probabilities, and this is where things are interesting. So the top 6 in the East are pretty much ironclad, right? You've got the New Jersey Devils, you've got the New York Rangers, you've got the Carolina Hurricanes, not in that order, in the Metro. In the Atlantic, you've got Boston, Toronto, Tampa. Those 3 have been the top 3. And then you've got the next 3. And it feels like one of these teams will miss the playoffs, and yet because how probabilities work, all of them are shown as having more than a 50% chance of making the playoffs. And one of them's not going to make it. So, first off, you've got Florida. 538 has them with a 63% chance of making the playoffs. They have the Islanders at 63 as well. And they have Pittsburgh at 60. So they're more soured on Pittsburgh than the other two, just barely. The Athletic has Florida at 71%. They have Pittsburgh at 65%. And the Islanders at 59%. So they're more sour on the Islanders than the other two. Money Puck is very bullish on Florida as well, 66.4%. They've got Pittsburgh at 64.4% and the Islanders at 63.3%. So the Islanders are third on their list as well. That's why I put them on the board the way that I did. It'll be very interesting to see who actually gets those last spots. Because it's all, there's the strength of schedule. Well, look how things have gone lately with the teams at the top. And let me just throw this in, because this is a lineup note for today's game featuring Boston and Buffalo. The Bruins are resting Orlov and Krejci, and Greer and Zboril are in the lineup. We're going to see more of this. As I'm just looking at the board now. Vegas, Toronto, New Jersey, Carolina. These 4 teams that are, pretty firmly entrenched near the top of the standings, they're going to be doing this too. We're going to see teams resting guys. And so when we look at strength of schedule and we say this is a really good team they're against, but is it? So once teams have either solidified their spot in the playoffs or just solidified that they're in the playoffs, we will see more of this. Boston's going to be resting guys. And just basically what Jim Montgomery's saying is, Krejci's kind of beat up, right? He's got some aches and pains. And yeah, as you get older, that happens. And Orlov, it's just his turn. It's his turn not to be in the lineup. And so they're rotating guys out. So Zboril gets a game today against Buffalo. And so does AJ Greer. Now that is absolutely, and no offense to Greer or Zboril, but they're not Orlov and Krejci. So that's going to downgrade the Boston lineup, right? And we're going to see more of that down the stretch. So strength of schedule, when it gets thrown out there, you can always answer with this and say, well, aren't those teams at the top that you're talking about having a really strong lineup, won't they be resting guys? And then there's the motivation factor, which is something that I started seeing this week. And last week too, and Boston being a good example of this, where I watched them and I'm like, these guys are not playing as hard as they were a month ago. And I get it. But again, for me, I'm like, so does this mean they're not as good? Or Chicago all chanting at them that they're overrated as Bruins fans are leaving the building. But are they? And on some level, yes. We've seen before, very recently, 2019 Tampa, that a team can just run the league the whole year and then the playoffs, it's a different beast. But yeah, this is where things get a little bit more murky. And so take the percentages with a grain of salt, because you don't know what lineup you're going to be getting from teams that are at the top down the stretch. And really, I think the teams that should be considered the strongest are the ones you're fighting for those playoff spots. The ones that are fighting for playoff spots in the other conference, if they come up on your schedule, those are the ones that are probably going to be the toughest. Those are the ones that should feel like playoff hockey. Or, the other side of it, the flip side is, you're going to see teams like Arizona, who now have 20 wins at home this season, right? And they don't have anything to play for other than pride and other than, hey, so, looking at next year. And Arizona's got actually a half-decent team right now. And so you might be more scared, or should maybe be more scared, of seeing Arizona on the upcoming schedule for your team than Boston. Because Arizona's not resting anybody. Why would they? They're out of it. And the players are playing really well. And Keller, Hayden, Schmaltz, my Lord, those three guys together are absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, it is an interesting time of the season. And Arizona's had these mirages before, and that will be a discussion point, too, at the end of the season, is which of these teams that had a good second half are actually that good and which ones aren't. And then, conversely, which team that maybe fell off in the second half will have a really good year next year and which ones won't. And, of course, we're not psychic. For all the comments I see from people about, well, the league's clearly rigged, I don't see those people winning a ton of money betting on who's going to win, because we should all know before a game what's going to happen, because after the fact, well, of course. So, and if the league does make it so that Boston's the greatest, they've won one Stanley Cup in 50 years. They do a really bad job of it. But at any rate, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.